So, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me here at The Good Life with Steve. I am Steve. So, pop quiz today. Let's say you're retired, okay, and you decide to move to a foreign country, like, say, the Dominican Republic. And I say that because that's where I am, but it could be anywhere. But you've been there long enough to experience the good, the bad, and the messy stuff in between, right? Would you do it again? Because I've asked myself this question lately quite a lot. And if I'm being honest, there are things that I really do appreciate about living here in the Dominican Republic, no joke. But at the same time, again, if I'm being honest, there are some things that frustrate me to absolute no end. And along the way, I've come to realize that there are some things that I could never have understood until I actually had boots on the ground. You know what I mean? So all that being said, did I make a mistake? Well, I'm going to answer that question for you. But what I want to do is I want to share with you my thought processes along the way to help you understand how I came to the conclusion that I've come to. And I'm going to do all of that right after this.
9 scars on my heart, but I'm stronger today. Every breath is a gift, every beat is a way. I'm living proof you can rise even after the fall. The good life is here, and I answer the call.
So I have tried to do this video on more than one occasion. I come out here, I sit down, I get settled in, and the Dominicans decide that, well, you know what, it's Thursday, so let's get turned up. Besides, Steve's trying to do a video, see if we can annoy him. But no, I don't get annoyed, but they do get turned up. So anyway, let's start with the part that a lot of times gets lost in the conversations when people are talking about moving abroad. You know, you would think that some people have discovered I don't know, the magic formula or the secret sauce to having the perfect life when you're retired. They show you the beaches, and that's fine. The weather is warm. The cost of living, well, that's lower. The food, it can be good, absolutely, and the slower pace. All those things are real. Absolutely they are. But here's what I want you to understand. That's not the whole story. Because moving to another country is not going to eliminate the problems that you have back there at home. And that's why a lot of people choose to leave, because they got problems back home. But what it's going to do is it's going to change those problems maybe a little bit. But here's what I know it's going to do also. You're going to find yourself being introduced to a whole new set of problems that you didn't have before. And I think that that is something that a lot of people really need to understand, because you can't simply trade your life in for a cheaper or warmer version of the world you're living in right now, because you're going to be moving to a completely different system. You know what I mean? A different set of rules, or you're going to have different expectations, or expectations are going to be expected of you differently. The infrastructure is going to be different. The way of doing business is going to be different. And that whole thing that you feel about what's your normal, oh, that's going to go out the window. You're going to experience a whole new normal, right? So consider this. There are things that, things here that are going to take considerably more patience than I know I was accustomed to, and probably you're going to be accustomed to, right? There are times when something that should take, say, 15, 20 minutes, oh, that's going to be an all day thing. Okay, it's going to be like a part-time job. And you're going to try to do something, and you're going to find that, you know what, I'm going to have to make a second trip, right? Or you're going to have to talk to another person, or, well, sir or ma'am, you're going to need to bring a few more documents they didn't tell you needed in the first place. And then once you get all that together, they're going to say, well, you're going to need another signature. And then that person whose signature you need, they're not here today. Come back tomorrow. Ding. Okay, so that's just how life works here. And if you are the kind of person who needs to have everything work in a way that you expect, everything to work according to some anticipated, predictable process, you're going to be mad. Okay, you're going to be real frustrated, because here's the thing that I've learned after being here for a little while, right? And that is that I could spend all of my time here fighting the system. And I did that for a little while anyway. But what I learned is that I could do things differently. How about I do this? How about I figure out how the system works and then work within that? And that doesn't mean that I just accept everything down here, because some things are just flat out wrong. But it means that I stop expecting the Dominican Republic to behave like the country I left. And I am from the United States. Okay. And I think that's a very important distinction. And then there's this. There is infrastructure. There it's infrastructure, right? But honestly, some things work beautifully here. Some things I never have a problem with. There really is, right? But then some things work differently, okay? Some things don't work the way I expect. Some things don't work at all. And what I find is that I have to have a little bit more patience. You 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 come to understand that convenience isn't always the same as it is back home. And what I mean by that, when I figured out how to get certain things done, then all of a sudden it became easy and convenient. But when I was trying to do it the way that I did it back home, or expected it to work the way that it did back home, it wasn't convenient at all, right? And so I find that if you're somebody who needs life to be predictable or immediate or familiar, then you're going to be frustrated. Speaking of frustration, I'm going to harp on it. The driving, yeah. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think that anybody, and I mean no one, should move to the Dominican Republic without the understanding that driving a vehicle here, oh, it's a whole different, whole different experience. Joe B is back in town. I met up with him today, and shout out to him and to Nick Bort, and also Omar the Travel Man. We all sit down and had lunch today, and just chatted up. But there they go. They know I'm trying to record. I don't know if that's you guys can hear that because this thing has voice or noise cancellation. But anyway, so I talked to Nick about, not Nick, but Joe several weeks ago, and he said, "Man, when I come, I'm gonna go to Punta Cana first. I'm gonna rent a car and I'm gonna drive across country." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think that's such a good move, Joe." He's like, "Yeah, but I gotta learn, man. I gotta learn." So when I finally met up with him today, looks like he's been taking shots because I think it can wreck you, right? So what I learned is that I have to pay a lot more attention when I'm driving. I have to anticipate better. Like when I was driving up from Santo Domingo the day before yesterday, I think it was. I'm traveling up I-1. I think it's I-1. I'm in the left lane. It's a two-lane interstate, and there's it's like a cement truck that's in the right lane, but he's just ahead of me, and I'm gaining on him. But then there's a F-150 that comes barreling past me, and there's not enough room for him to come over and then go around this cement truck. Well, here's what he does. He comes over anyway. He's willing to have the accident to save, I don't know, 25, 30 seconds on his trip. But if you have the accident, you ruin your whole day. Well, he doesn't make that calculation. He's just doing what he wants to do. And so I have to anticipate things differently, because to me, the most important thing for me is not the 8 seconds that I could save by driving faster. It's that I get to my destination safely and on time. So yeah, I have to anticipate differently. I have to develop a whole different level of awareness. And there are moments when I find myself thinking, you know what, people, what are y'all doing out here? I mean, really, what are you doing? What is it that you expect? I mean, because anyway, anyway, eventually I began to understand the rhythm of how they drive. And like I say, I see this guy, he's coming past me. He's not going to wait until there's enough room. He's just going to muscle his way in. So you know what? I fall back. I let him in. Okay. I understand the rhythm. Again, it doesn't mean that I stop being careful when I start driving. What it means is that, I guess what it means is that I learned, and maybe that's the larger lesson, living here is going to require a significant amount of adaptation, right? And if you are not willing to adapt, if you are not malleable, then this country, it's going to wear you down. It's going to piss you off, and it's going to wear you down. But yeah, so let's bring this down to earth a little bit more. So Here's the thing, because saying that things here are inconvenient versus saying things or asking the question if I made the right decision. Well, they're two very different questions. So, and what I do is I find myself now asking that second question: did I make the right decision to move here a little bit more often? And it's not because, well, my life is falling apart. It's not. It's not because, you know, this place is crazy or that I hate living here all of a sudden. But it's because, well, I think it's what happens when we make major decisions in our lives. Eventually the scales fall from our eyes and we have this red pill sort of moment, right? And we see life for what it is. The novelty dissipates and you stop living your life as if you are fresh off the boat, right? Or if, you just arrived here. You start living an actual life, a real life, a life a life where you begin to make serious evaluations. You start noticing things that really bother you, right? Because they were kind of cute in the beginning, but after a while, y'all kind of getting on my nerves, right? Things that you miss, right? And you're gonna miss things from home. I know I do. Not so much things, I guess. I miss butter pecan ice cream, right? And I miss my family. But well, not just any butter pecan ice cream, bluebell butter pecan ice cream. Anyway, things that some things are going to take more effort than I'm used to exerting to get very simple things done. Sometimes there are things that I really wish they would do differently, but they're not. And so sometimes you'll find yourself wondering, and this is a question that I think every expat has asked themselves. And if they're honest, they'll tell you, yeah, I've asked myself that question. But I also think that is a question that you back home should ask yourself before you uproot your life and jet off to some foreign land. And here's the question, and it is a simple one, and it needs to be answered honestly. And it is this: would my life be easier if I had just stayed right where I was? And that's a legitimate question. And I don't think that anyone should be ashamed of asking themselves that question. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't even be offended when you're talking about your move. If you're being honest with someone and you talk about a few things that maybe you are a little frustrated with or disappointed with, if someone says, "Hey, yo, bro, did you make the right decision?" Because it's okay. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, I think it's a healthy conversation to have because moving abroad should not be about you or me trying to convince ourselves or someone else that we've made the perfect move. It should be about asking ourselves whether we're still living the life that we really want. There may be some things from home that you miss. Yeah, there may be moments where you're going to become frustrated with with the way that things work here. And I I have those same moments. Even moments when I ask myself, you know what, Steve, is this juice really worth the squeeze? And that's where I have to be careful. Even here on social media as a content creator, and I guess I can call myself that now. I've been out here for a year, but we have to resist the temptation of sharing with you guys the the special moments here on social media. The sunsets, the beaches, the fancy restaurants, and the expensive apartments. And I try not to do that here. If you catch me doing that, or if you see me do that in the past, go ahead and call me out on it. And I say that for a reason, and that is this: although those things are wonderful, they're not a complete life. A complete life is going to consist of some inconsistency, some inconveniences. There's going to be uncertainty. It's going to include some frustrations and some adjustments. And there's going to be times when you're going to say, "Wait a minute, freeze, everybody. Okay, this ain't what I expected." Right? Somebody lied to me. Okay, but when I think that's actually where where my decision begins to come into view, right? Because it isn't about if this thing is perfect, right? It isn't about, you know, how should I put this? Well, let me just put it this way. When I put everything on a scale, right? when I when I put everything on a scale, what I'm asking myself is there is this life the life I want? That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. And but at the same time, my decision process and my the decision I made began to come into focus when I started to see things clearly along these lines. And that is this. Is my life frustrating here? Yes, sometimes it is. And there are some things here, however, that I value more and more. So there are things that frustrate me, and then there are things that I value. And one of those things that I value, well, actually, there's two things. One that I've spoken to you on several occasions, and that is the peace that I found since I've gotten here. And then there's the pace of the life that I live. Just the other day, I'm at the mall helping a friend with something, and before I get done with her, I get a call from someone, and I'm going to meet with him. And then before we can get out of the mall, we bump into a couple of other people that I know. So then we all end up huddling up together, sitting around, enjoying coffee. And before you know it, 2.5, 3 hours has gone by, and that's a pace that I can't, or that a lot of times back home I couldn't appreciate because I just didn't get it. A good man, a good brother, a couple of brothers were here just a couple of months ago, really just about a month ago. But and shout out to you, Malik and Will. They're back in the States right now, but they were saying, listen, man, when we're at home, we can't do what we're doing here. And at that time, we were just kicking back and relaxing and taking our times. We didn't have time. We didn't have to be anywhere at any particular time. And that is a pace that I think a lot of people just kind of desire, but they just can't get to. You know, there's something about stepping away from having that constant pressure to always produce, to always acquire more, to always compete and just keep up. You know, you begin to realize, at least I did, that my life is consumed, or at least it was consumed when I was back there, with a lot of things that just didn't matter anymore. And as I have gotten older, I've come to redefine what wealth really means. Because it used to mean how much money I had in the bank, or in this account, or in that account, or how big a house did I have, or what kind of car did I drive? Did I have the nicest jewelry? No, I have a smartwatch. You know, all of that stuff didn't matter anymore. What matters to me is a four-letter word, and get your mind out of the gutter, because the word is time. I have time now, time to enjoy the freedom that I have, time to breathe, and the opportunity to decide what I'm going to do with my day. Right? Like when, as I said, when I was at the mall and we just blew off everything else because we could, or when I was enjoying lunch with the fellas today. Why? Because I could, right? And I think that's something that I value a lot more, you know. But then there's the cost of living, right? You have to address that because it does cost to live, right? I remember my dad said that when I was like 13, 14 years old. I'm thinking, cost to live? What is he talking about? Well, there is a cost to live. But I want to be careful here because I don't think that anybody should move to the Dominican Republic simply because you think it's cheaper, right? I don't, well, I'm not sure if going somewhere because it's cheap is a good retirement strategy. But at the same time, I do recognize that things are a little bit less expensive here, and that when your expenses are manageable, you can experience retirement, and not just retirement, but life in general, completely different. Because, like I say, Will and Malik, they're not retired; they're grinding in the States, but they set up their home here so that they can experience life differently. It gives you choices when that happens, and it can allow you to spend your money on things that actually improve your life rather than simply, I don't know, spending your money on a lifestyle. That word lifestyle, it kind of, when I hear that word, sometimes it's like someone takes their fingernails and they're dragging them across the chalkboard. I remember when we were purchasing a house, and this like decades ago, and I was talking to one of the mortgage people, and they were saying, well, you know, you guys can get what they call it, a negative amortization mortgage, right? And what that is, I asked him, he said, well, okay, instead of your mortgage being $2,400 a month, if it is that, you can, just pay $1,000, 800 or 1,200, whatever suits you that month. And I was like, well, what's going to happen to all the other money? He said, well, it's going to get put on the back end of the mortgage. And how does that get paid off? In a balloon payment. Well, I'm thinking now, that's not real convenient, okay? And I don't want to do that because I'm not looking for a lifestyle. I'm looking for a life. And I don't know if he really understood what I meant when I said that, but I think a lot of people came to understand because then the mortgage bubble hit and all that, all hell broke loose then. But yeah, I'm looking for a life and not a lifestyle. I saw a video and I saw it was somebody talking about the cost of living and can you live in a Marriott hotel, and they were talking like $1,500 for a little bitty what's it called when you have everything in one room. And I'm going, and then she said you can have this lifestyle of walking around the hotel, because I'm like, I don't want a lifestyle. I want a life. And that's what's important to me. You know what else is important? It's the people. It's the people. When you pick up and move your life from, I don't know, Milwaukee, Wisconsin to, I don't know, Panama City, Florida, or Panama City, Panama, or from Seattle, Washington to Ecuador, or wherever it is you decide to go, it is the people that are going to make the difference wherever you land. And I say that because wherever you are, wherever you're moving from, you already have your people. You have your family, your friend, your work associates, all of that. You built all of that over all those years, and now you're going to go someplace else. And so it is the people that's going to matter. It's going to be the relationships. It's going to be those everyday interactions, like the one we had today. The moments that I can't put on a spreadsheet, right? Because you know how I like to do my spreadsheets. I can't calculate that. I can't quantify it, right? I mean, I can calculate how much I pay here for rent. I can tell you what groceries cost. I can tell you what the electric bill is, or what my internet bill is, or how much it's going to cost you maybe for transportation or something like that. But what I can't put a number on is what it means to feel when you're actually participating in your life, and you're not just sitting in the back seat of your life's car while somebody else drives you to wherever they think you need to go. And that's where I think the decision becomes more complicated, right? Because yes, there are compromises that I'm going to have to make while I'm here. I'm making compromises every day. But I think every life has compromises, right? So the question isn't whether I'm going to have to make compromises, because in the US, as you guys can kind of see, this is sort of a, what do you call it? More music. I'm not stopping. The show must go on, okay? I think that there is something right about this part of this street back here. Because see, right now, they're going to turn the music down, but they just turned it up just as they were approaching here. You think someone called and told them, hey, listen, Steve's making another video, okay? But this is sort of like a stream of consciousness for me, because I'm kind of working through this process. But I know that if I went back to the US, I'd have to make compromises. If I chose to stay here, I'd have to make compromises. If I go to another country because I have a US passport, there's a lot of places I can go, I'd have to make compromises there. So there's no country I can go to. There's no perfect retirement that I can have, and I guess that means there's no perfect life. So I eventually have to just stop looking for what's perfect. And I think a better question at this point then becomes, where can I build a life that simply makes sense to me? And you got to do that for yourself. You have to ask yourself that and answer that honestly. Don't push away things that or something comes up that's a difficult question to answer, or you don't feel comfortable with it. Lean into it. Go ahead and answer, because that's going to make all the difference. And it's made the difference for me. So let me get back to the real question. I retired. I came to the Dominican Republic. Did I make a mistake? Well, if you had asked me that when I first landed here, when I was fresh off the boat, just got off the plane, You know what? I would have had to just make up something, if I chose to answer it, but I probably just wouldn't. I'd say, I don't know. But I think I needed to live it. I needed to experience all the frustrations, and I need to figure out what I like, because there are things here that I thought I would like that I didn't, right? And then I had to figure out the things that I didn't like, because there were things that I thought that I didn't like that I end up liking, right? I had to figure out how to adapt to certain things. I had to figure out what I could put up with and what I couldn't put up with, because there are non-negotiables in life, and we have to recognize those things, and we have to address those as well. Because if it really is a non-negotiable and they're pounding you over the head with it, then it may not be the right place for you. But after doing all that, and after living here, and after seeing the good, the bad, and yes, sometimes the ugly, after understanding that this country isn't going to simply change because Steve, from the good life washed up on shore. No. Would I do it all again? Yeah, I would. Absolutely, I'd do it again. But you know what? That's not the important part. Because it doesn't mean that I think that everybody should move to the Dominican Republic. I honestly don't. In fact, if I'm really being honest with you, I think that most of you, if you were to move here, you'd be miserable. You'd be flat out miserable. Because see, you if you are the kind of person that needs things to work exactly the way they do back home, if you cannot tolerate uncertainty, if you are if you are rigid and you cannot adapt, then yeah, you're not going to make it here. And especially if you think you're going to pack up and move someplace and that wherever you go is going to be a permanent vacation, this really isn't the place for you. Okay. And then there's this. If if you are moving to the Dominican Republic because some knucklehead on YouTube told you that with $1,500 you can come here and then live like a king, then somebody's lying. You need to do your own research, because you can't live anywhere on the face of this planet like a king for $1,500. And you can make it here on $1,500. There are a lot of people who do. There's a lot of people who make it on more. There's a lot of people who make it on less. Depends on how you want to live. But if you want to live like a king, go look up Jeff Bezos's lifestyle. And I think there you'll see what a king kind of looks like when you have more money than you, your children, your grandchildren, great grandchildren, and great great grandchildren can spend. Well, I say that, but the Vanderbilts managed to spend all theirs. Okay, but when you've got that kind of loot, then okay, you can live like a king. But what you need to do, you need to take a good look at yourself and understand yourself before you start trying to understand a country. Because the Dominican Republic is not going to become the life that you imagine simply because you landed here at the airport. You have to build your life. You're going to have to build it from scratch. Just like the life you have back there, you built that over 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years or more for many of us. Now you pick up and you move somewhere and you're starting from scratch all over. That's why people are very important. But in order to make this happen for yourself, it's going to require some patience. It's going to require a ton of flexibility. It's going to require you to be humble. And I know sometimes as Americans, we're the last ones to be humble, right? But a lot of times it's going to require you admitting to yourself that it just isn't what you expected. And that's okay. But here's what I've discovered: that I don't need the Dominican Republic to be perfect for me to live the good life. I don't need for every system here to work the way I expect in order for me to live the good life. I don't need for everything to be easy, because I know that it won't, for me to live the good life. Here is what I need. I need the things that matter most to outweigh the things that don't. I'll say that again. I need the things that matter most to outweigh the things that don't. And for me, right here, they do. So, did I make a mistake? No, I didn't. Would I do everything exactly the same way I did before? No. No. Anyone who says they'll do it all the same way all over again, they're lying, because we all make mistakes. And so there were things that I wish I had known before I came here. You know, the old, I wish I had known then what I know now. Yeah, there's always that. There's decisions that I would make differently. There's preparations I would have made before I, packed up and moved down here. But knowing what I know now, yes, I'd still make the move. And maybe that's the most honest answer I can give you. Not that the Dominican Republic, I've told you a million times it isn't. Not that retirement abroad is easy. Although some people say we make it look easy, it is not. You don't see the whole thing. Again, you're looking through this lens. You don't see the whole world. And nobody, none of us should follow the same path. We all have our own journeys to walk. We all are on our own journeys. And I can't walk yours for you. You can't walk in my shoes. But for me, after leaving, yeah, I'd do it again. So if you're considering becoming an expat, if you're considering moving to the Dominican Republic or any place else, right? I hope this video has given you something useful that you can sink your teeth in, because it's not a sales pitch. I got nothing to sell you. But I hope it gave you something to think about, because ultimately, again, it's not whether or not this place is perfect. The question is whether, and I think this is it, whether the life you can build wherever you want to go is going to be measurably better than the life you're leaving behind. And whether that move to become an expat leads you to your own version of a good life. So until next time, everybody, I'm Steve. This is the good life. So many blessings.